You can get with this or you can get with that. On the next episode of the Banking Bros podcast, we're going to play a little game of either or when it comes to your finances. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jay Dew.
And I'm Jonah.
We're walking and talking through code cracking cash flow, and we've got some scenarios for you today. Actually, Jonah, I think you've got some scenarios for me.
Yeah, what we're going to do in this episode is kind of put you as the typical American, all-American male, if you will.
All-American male. I feel like I'm an all-American right now.
And I'm going to ask you some either or, some would you rathers, if you will. And we'll kind of go back and forth. And what I wanted to do is get some scenarios that closely match what happens with, you know, what happens in the typical American lifestyle. Like, these are real choices that people have.
Okay.
And real choices that people call us with. And we want to see kind of the ins and outs, right? The intricacies of what you'd pick and what you're thinking and that sort of thing. So I got 5 scenarios to walk through, and that's what we'll be doing later on in the episode.
Before we get to that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you. If it's your first time with us, what we do on this podcast is we help people come to the financial foundations of their life to make sure that what they're thinking is actually going to get them to where they want to go.
That's right.
So if you are on our podcast channels, wherever you love to stream, we appreciate a few comments, likes, and subscriptions there. If you're on YouTube at The Banking Bros, you can subscribe, of course, and drop us a comment there. And on our social handles, you can find us at thecashcompound.com and The Banking Bros on Instagram, as well as TikTok. So if you're into those things, you're going to be in for a treat. Lots of short and long form content helping you get to the save and spend system. We teach people how to save and spend money at the exact same time. 10 years ago, someone shared it with us, and we're sharing those truths with you. We realized financial education isn't something everybody grew up with. So now let's, in the information age, have that conversation in a calm, a safe environment.
Yeah, it's a safe place. You know, each episode we give a shout out to somebody who's followed us on one of our platforms or subscribed to us on YouTube. We normally do it a little later in the episode, but I'm thinking this week let's do it. Let's do it up front.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Right. So big shout out this week to a YouTube subscriber. The YouTube name here is Higher Purpose, and I think the handle, if you will. They call them handles on YouTube still?
I think it's anywhere.
The right? Yeah. I think that is Ernie Hayek. So, Ernie, if you are watching, so here's what being a subscriber means, I believe. You can correct me if I get it wrong. But I'm pretty positive that means they've recently subscribed to our channel, which means I think they get notified when we post new content, new videos.
If they ring the bell.
If they ring the bell. So if you haven't rung the bell, you definitely should.
School's in session,
And
Ernie.
So what I'm saying to you, Ernie, here, Higher Purpose, is that if you see this, hear this, listen to this, know that we gave you a shout out. And what you should do is leave us a comment, ask us a question in our comment section on this video or any other videos, and we'll come back to it. We've actually got a few live shows throughout the week where we'll come back and answer questions specifically. Those shows are called our Ask Us Anything shows. So we make sure that we answer the questions when you've asked us stuff. But for you, Ernie, we're going to make sure that we answer that if you see this comment. So we really appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing, and hopefully you get our shout out.
One more thing before we get into the either or list. I want to recap 1 or 2 phone calls that I had this week. Each and every week, we have a free cash consultation with people out there who want to have this conversation with us. How in the world do I do this? I love the theory. I love you guys. I feel like the culture is right, but I have questions. So what you want to do is you want to click the link somewhere in that bio so we can have a one-on-one conversation. Maybe you and yours, maybe a 1-on-2, because you and the +1, your spouse, your significant other, also has questions about your actual finances in your family. So this past week, I had a conversation with someone who had a Gerber policy.
Nice.
And the mom had bought it on them. This person is now of age, 28 or so. And she now wanted to potentially convert that to permanent life insurance so she could get into this idea.
It was a term Gerber?
That's what I had to look up. Exactly. This was yesterday. I had to look that up. I was like, is that a thing?
I would have assumed that was a whole life.
I did it as well. So I'm trying to Google things. I say, hey, what can you tell me about the policy that you have? And the answer was not much. One of the reasons, of course, is because it was bought for them. It was bought on them when they were a kid. And so they were looking to switch the ownership to themselves, which is a thing. You should do that if you want. And then I said, what you really want to do at that point is call the company and ask them, what are the details? Get a login. You can go to that profile just like you can on your phone, your grocery store these days. We got profiles. I got a profile for my Excel spreadsheets, right? Whatever. Get yourself an online login so you can actually...
You can chat inside an Excel spreadsheet.
Can you now?
Uh-huh.
You remember when Kelly Rowland tried to chat Nelly?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Excel.
So that's what you should do. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have life insurance on yourself right now and you don't know anything about it and you can't find that file, call the company, tell them who you are, give them your social or whatever it is, and they'll give you the policy number, give you a login, and go to the website. And then just like anything else, you can see your details. You can see your account values. You can see your death benefit. You can see if there's actually equity or cash value available to use. That's what this person needed to do for the process of potentially getting into this idea of a private bank. That's what she wanted to know.
Yeah. Then screenshot all that stuff, send it over to the person you're working with so they can help you understand what you've got. And we'll be more than happy to do that for you as well if you end up working with us. So if you want to get on a conversation like that, because you might have a scenario that closely matches that, what you should do is click the link in our bio, click the link in the description to this video, and you should book a free cash consultation. We'll be more than happy to walk you through it.
All right, Jonah, I'm ready. Give me some scenarios.
Cool.
Who's my bad? That's my scenario.
All right,
Remember
I got
that?
5 scenarios to walk. I do not. I got 5 scenarios to walk you through.
Big pimpin',
Now,
baby.
what I'm going to try to do is give you this scenario in a real life situation.
Okay.
And let you talk through it. And I also made some bullet points. Like,
Okay.
I think now that I've given you the scenario, you should talk through X, liquidity. You should talk through Y, traditional financing. Like, you got to think through these things as you go through these scenarios. So it's an either or. It's a would you rather scenario.
Yep.
So here's the one side. So first, let's set the scene. You are in the market for a new car.
Very good.
Okay. So you need to buy one. You cannot continue going throughout your life without one.
This just happened in the family.
Okay.
So I'm ready.
So here's the question. Would you rather finance the car through a car dealership at 5% interest, good interest rate?
That is, because I've definitely financed a car at 14 in my day.
Yeah. Would you rather finance a car through the car dealership at 5% interest over the course of 5 years?
5 years, 60 months.
Yep. Or use a policy loan from your infinite banking policy, and the loan interest rate is 7%.
Interesting question. So
which would you rather?
That's all the information I get?
That's all the information you get.
What type of car is this, baby?
It's the new Cyber. It's the Cyber truck.
Okay.
5%. It's a good deal.
Very good. So
it's a big,
do they sell those at CarMax?
They, maybe the used one, maybe someone traded one in, but probably not. Probably you're going to get them
because we went to CarMax
from
recently.
Tesla.
Okay.
Themselves.
All right. Very good. So here's the scenario. Let's do this. I want to go to a interest calculator.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull that up on my screen here, and I'll read it to all you guys out there. I want to know how much interest I'm going to be paying. So give me my actual price on a Cybertruck. You would know. I don't.
Yeah, it's 100,000. Yep.
Okay, 100,000, 60 months.
Which thankfully makes it an easy math here for us.
Oh, sure.
Love it.
Okay, so I'm going to calculate sales tax, title, registration, all sorts of things are in this particular. Okay, so, I'm sorry, I put a down payment. I put a down payment down. Is that fine?
That's fine. You normally have to when you finance things.
Okay, 10,000. It was just already written into this. So this is the scenario. I went to calculator.net. If you're ever trying to do math like this, remember everybody, money is not math and math is not money. This could be really helpful to you. So $100,000 Cybertruck, 5% interest rate. That's what Jonah told me. But we added in a couple more things. He also told me 5 years, 60 months. I put a $10,000 payment down. I bought it in South Carolina. So my sales tax is 5%, and title, registration, and other fees were $3,000. Here's where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
My monthly payment is $1,698. So that's right at $1,700. and my total cost over the course of time is going to end up being $119,904 and 66 cents.
Yep.
You know, I've said this before on our podcast. It is a pet peeve of mine for people to say "and" before you get to the change. You don't say "and" till you get to the change. That number is 119,904 and 66 cents. You don't say the "and" before that.
When do people say it?
All the time. Most people say "and." They say 100 and the 994. That's not how you say the number. It's not how you say the numbers, everyone. Okay, I'm off of that. Okay, so we have total loan interest, it says here. So that's one of the questions you're asking, and I wanted to get down to business.
Yep.
Okay, 11,904 and 66 cents
of total interest. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question. The question is, the question is, would you borrow from your policy at 7, or would you pay this interest at 5?
Yep. That's the question.
Okay, so here's the idea. What we have to talk through, and I never would have gotten this right. Most people out there driving or on the treadmill probably don't do this math either, is there's a difference between compound interest and amortized interest.
Sure.
And that's what people are probably going to miss. So one of the things that you need to realize is that when you're paying off a balance, you have a lower, you're paying off a bill, amortized interest, you have a lower balance all the time.
Lower principal every time you make
Lower
a payment.
principal, yes. Okay, now if I borrow from my policy, remember in the infinite banking world, in the world of having whole life insurance, what's going to happen is my contributions to the policy, premium, what I've put in so far, what I probably will continue to put in over the course of this 60 months, continues to earn. It continues to earn interest. So while I am paying off the loan, my dollars are actually still growing. It's hard for people to recognize that because, one, they don't see it. And I think the visual helps. Like, just put it on the table. Most of the time around here on our podcast, and definitely in our Save and Spend video, we show the 3-cup setup. And we help people separate the fact that loans are coming against your growing value and your contributions or premiums are still growing.
Yep.
Big deal. So over the course of time.
That was one of my bullet points. I put after the question that you needed to at least highlight how IBC can give you flexibility and growth even after the initial purchase, which is exactly what you did. That's a humongous deal, right? One of the scenarios, buying the car outright, means that as soon as you finance that car, pay that car back over 5 years, like your scenario, your situation is complete. It's done. Right?
Okay.
The other side, using your infinite banking policy, it does not stop. It does not end. Your scenario is not done just because you've bought a car and you've paid it back over 5 years. Your scenario continues to grow because this is a whole life policy that provides value for your whole life. You just so happen to purchase a car with this 5 year piece of your whole life, right? Which makes it a very different. The math doesn't just finish at the 5 year point,
right?
Like it does.
It continues to grow. One of the guarantees inside whole life insurance is that your premium continues to compound. So the result of your premium compounding is actual cash value going up. That's what we can borrow against and spend.
Yep.
So those two are separate things, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. You still need to buy cars and drive them. But if you're borrowing, let's say 7%, you're borrowing against the policy at 7%, your compounding is not stopping.
That's right.
And that's what we have to consider. Also, this is a big deal. It's probably going to come up in your scenarios, Jonah, but I'll save the explanation for a different one. Is the control. You control it the whole time.
I love that.
Okay, give me the scenario number 2.
Scenario number 2, you ready? Okay, this is a retirement dilemma.
Well, I got to think into the future.
You got to think into the future. All right, so here's the scenario. Let's set the scene. You are 35 years old.
Oh, I'm back to the future then.
There you go.
Going back 5 years.
No Marty McFly. You're 35 years old, and you want to save for retirement.
Okay.
So here's the would you rather. Would you rather put $500 a month into a 401k with employer matching?
Up to the whole time, the
Up to,
whole
up to the
$500.
$500. Yep,
Okay,
yep,
cool.
yep. Or would you rather fund an infinite banking policy at $500 a month? Obviously, no employer matching.
Interesting.
Which would you rather?
Okay, well, on calculator.net, I found a retirement calculator, and it already pre-populated 35 years old. I'm going to plan to retire at 67. Okay, I'm going to plan to retire at 67. My life expectancy is 85. We did a life expectancy calculator once.
We did.
Mine was disappointing.
Low. Yeah. Mine was low.
It's like, I got to get to work. Okay. All right. According to this, I'm making $70,000 a year. Let's see. How can I put this in? So 500 matched 500. So 1,000 per month, you said?
Per month. Yep.
So 12,000 a year is going in.
500 to a 401k with employer matching, or $500 a month into a policy. Obviously, no employer matching.
Okay. Right. Well, not obviously.
Yeah.
We've had a conversation. Yeah.
In this scenario.
I had a conversation with one guy one time where the company, he was a franchisee, but they bought him whole life because he wanted it.
Yeah, there's lots of, so if you not aware of that, in our scenario, of course, today, there's no employer matching on the IBC policy, but in real life, your employer can absolutely match your infinite banking policy contributions, your whole life insurance contributions.
Ask them.
It's called a deferred compensation. You can do it a couple different ways, but one of them is deferred compensation. There's some really cool ways that your employer can still get the tax benefit and write-off that the employer wants, and contribute the money to somewhere you want it.
So you can have that retirement.
Like Jeremiah just said, you should go ask them. But in our scenario today, $500 matched, or $500 into the IBC.
So here's what the average person needs to think about. All right, we've got $1,000 going in then, $500 coming out of my pocket for deferral. We also got $500 coming from the employer, $12,000 a year. Okay, over the course of time here, that might be 30 years. Right, 30 to 32 years of that amount. So let's make sure first, how much money is that total? Just straight up money. 12,000 times 30. If we never change the contributions,
change the contributions.
Okay, 384,000.
Yep.
Okay, and what we have here is a lack of control. That's really the big thing we got to talk about. $384,000 is going to be contributed, right? It's not contributed day one. So if your 401k is invested in something that averages 7%, you don't actually have access to all of the money.
There you go. That was on my list. Liquidity. Let's talk about liquidity in that scenario.
The liquidity is low. Now you can borrow in most 401k plans. You can borrow against the principal amount. So it will not keep growing if you take money out of it.
There you go.
There's also normally a limit to how much you can borrow. Normally that's up to 50 grand.
Yep.
And we are going to stifle the potential growth while things are out. Also, there is no guarantee the 401k is actually growing.
That's a big deal. A lot of people miss that.
And
they assume that it's going to grow, but there is no guarantee on 401ks that it will grow. And that's a big deal. You're crossing your fingers and saying, I hope it grows, but at no point in any paperwork did they tell you that they promised you that.
No, it's invested, and that implies risk. And so another issue that folks need to consider is that while your stuff is out or while it's in, there are going to be years of bear markets.
Yep.
It's going to go the opposite direction.
Over 30 years, it's going to happen. You know that it's going to happen.
Probably
right?
2 to 3 times out of every decade, you had a negative year.
Yep.
And so negative years affect the amount of money. We already decided, I threw out this idea of 7% average, but the amount of money is a big deal. I cannot spend the average. I have to spend the amount of money that's there. Also, once I get to retirement age, assumedly I did not take any distributions before there were penalties. So after 59 and a half, at $384,000 total contributed, no idea how much is going to be there because of the growth or the lack thereof.
Yep.
Then I'm taxed.
There you go.
And in insurance, there will be no tax. There will be no waiting to use cash values, and it never goes backward. We also borrow against a growing value, and we don't withdraw anything.
There you go. So which would you rather? Which are you taking?
Me, I'm taking because I need to buy things over the course of the next 32 years and not just let it sit and hope for the best. And who knows if I'm going to make it to 67. According to my life expectancy, I might be out of here next year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Disney World now. I'm using IBC.
Okay. You ready for scenario number 3?
Yes.
Let's do an emergency fund scenario. Okay,
All right.
So here's the scenario. Let's set the scene. You saved $20,000 as your emergency fund.
That's a very reasonable amount in
Right.
the world that I live in today. And I've rebuilt an emergency fund. There were some emergencies this year.
All right,
Okay.
$20,000 as your emergency fund. Okay, so here's the would you rather. Either or. Would you rather keep it in a high yield savings account, earning 5%?
5%. Very high.
Those are real these days.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of online banks who are giving out 5% for sure right now.
Oh, for sure.
So would you rather keep your 20 grand in a high yield savings account earning 5%, or would you rather use that 20 grand as a paid up additions payment into an existing policy?
Interesting. So let's define paid up additions for the newer folks. Paid up additions contributed into your policy make your death benefit go up.
It does.
If you give the insurance company money, they give you death benefit. Okay, in whole life insurance, this is going to be there forever. It's going to last. And paid up additions means it's going to be immediately equitable. You've got the use of that money as cash value.
Yep.
So if you want to borrow it and use it, you can, but your policy is still growing. It still has a big death benefit and all that type of thing. So we can borrow against it. So if we die, they just owe us less money. We borrowed some of it. Okay, so this is interesting. So I like high yield savings.
Sure.
I
a lot
do.
of people do,
I've had
especially at a
CDs.
5%.
Yeah, 5% is great. Well, in the last couple of years, 5% has been awesome, right? So if you have, that's great. I actually like that. Now, one of the scenarios we have to think through here is taxes, once again.
Sure.
If you put your dollars inside high yield savings, the growth will be taxable.
You will get a 1099 from your bank at the end of the year.
But you do have guarantees on these things, right?
Yep.
High yield savings, CDs, those types of things.
The money can't go down in a high yield savings or a CD. It's not going to disappear like in the 401k it could.
Right. Similar,
not going to go away.
Similar to your 401k, if you if you take money from it, it can't grow. You took it out.
Right.
Okay. But that doesn't happen in IBC. That's what we have to continually help people understand, because they're probably pretty ignorant and naive about that. We can borrow against it, but we don't actually take money out, so it can't grow anymore. So here's the scenario. If we put it in paid up additions, making the policy larger, giving me access to cash value if I want to borrow against the value, then I can put it in a high yield savings account.
Oh,
I can do both.
you can do both.
If I use IBC, I can have my cake and eat it too. My pastor said that 6 months ago, and he said that sounded like the dumbest scenario when he was getting, and I was like, I honestly don't know what that means. Have your cake. That means you have it on the table, you can look at it and eat it, but you still have cake.
Mm-hmm.
That's what IBC allows you to do. I have my money, 20 grand, inside my policy, contributing to the growth, and I'm utilizing the borrowing power against it, and I can put it in a high yield savings account if I like those. Now I've got the best of both worlds. I'm actually doing both here.
I love
So
it.
that's my choice. I'm going to do both of them.
As opposed to just one.
As opposed to just one. I'm going to do both of them. I'm going to do IBC first so I can do the other one. If I do high yield savings first, I'm not going to be able to get all that money inside my policy.
All right, you ready for scenario number 4?
Ready?
Would you rather, number 4, this is about debt payoff.
I've also done that in my life. I feel like I'm a pro at this.
Okay, here we go. So let's set the scenario first, right? You've got $10,000 credit card debt. You've got $10,000 outstanding balance on a credit card. The credit card is charging you 18% interest.
Pause. Now, I hear that Trump and somebody else, I don't know.
Is it the Department of Government Efficiency?
I'm not sure what Vivek and Elon are up to. What a name. Vivek and Elon and Vivek. But anyway, they're trying to potentially get credit card companies. Oh, Bernie Sanders. It's Trump and Bernie Sanders. I just heard.
Trying to make them have a standard.
They're saying credit cards can't go. They're trying to pass these bills and federal regulations where the credit card companies can't go above 10%.
Oh, that'd be great for a lot of people because some of these credit cards are wild.
Yeah, but then people shouldn't get them.
Yeah, I mean,
personal responsibility is my thought. Okay, 18%, $10,000 outstanding. I've never had that scenario.
$10,000 outstanding, 18%. So here's the would you rather. Would you rather aggressively save, earn, pay off that credit card, and it takes 1 year to do so, or start an infinite banking policy, borrow against the policy in order to pay off the debt, but it'll take you 2 years to pay off the credit card?
That one is, I think this is the toughest scenario you've given me so far.
All right.
I think it is. And here's why. Because debt is a burden on the brain.
Sure. It's
a burden on the brain. So I feel like that one is too hard to answer. I know lots of people.
We got to answer for the folks.
I'm just saying. Here's the scenario. Give me an opportunity to let the people know.
All right.
There's a couple ways to think about this in my mind, and the more information someone gives us on the cash consultation, the better it's going to be.
Yep.
Because of this, everybody knows if you hang out on our channels that if you put dollars inside premium, you keep them forever. They grow and cash flow, as I always say, and then you can use that cash flow to pay off the debt.
Sure.
But there are other scenarios and other factors. Do you have kids? Are other things coming up in your life? Do you need to buy a car within that 1 or 2 years? Are you potentially having investments? Here's where I might say that you'd actually pay off the debt first.
Okay.
Do you have investments? We talk to a lot of investors that cash flow passively. And if they cash flow passively, you might actually take the passive cash flows and pay off the debt before you start the policy. I would be, if someone says that is the scenario that they'd want to do, I might say that's fine. Hey, you should fund a policy with all the money you can up front. And I might actually allow someone the space to go, well, if you did I have a guy right now in South Carolina. I have an opportunity to go flip a house and passively cash flow income and use that to fund the policy. Then they might borrow against it and pay off the credit card. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Are we maxed on the credit card? Are we going to stop this bad habit? Or are we going to continue to have more and more debt? I think those are just good things. Now, most people, of course, I'm trying to help them understand what infinite banking is. So, but
the only thing that I'd say to the answer to your question is you're adding more to the scenario than the scenario than I gave you.
I did that on all of them.
Yeah, but this one you're adding a lot.
I'm just saying this one.
Let's set the scene.
Because here's the reason. Here's the reason.
It's 18%. Which one would you rather?
Here's the reason. Because if I say an answer here, people are going to try to refute my answer because they added all those scenarios.
Sure.
And I'm going. I'm going to let you add them.
Sure.
And depending on
which
what
I
you
think
add.
is legitimate,
Yes.
because again, that's part of the reason that we always talk about having a cash consultation. Like we will really talk to you and nail down your scenario in order to give you some of these answers. But with just the scenario that I've listed, I'd say that, okay, so over the course of a year on the credit card debt, if you aggressively save up and pay it off, you'll pay a little bit of interest. Right, it's 18% over the course of the year, $10,000 loan. So maybe, again, rough math. I'm not using the correct calculators here, but maybe $1,800 of interest. Right, you're going to pay interest. It'll be more than that, but you're going to pay interest. You're also going to give up $10,000 because you had to pay that too. So I'm
Principal.
at $11,800 that I made in a year that I gave.
Right.
The alternative, of course, is to never give up the money, because if you use your IBC policy, you're going to use the cash value, the loan amount, to pay off the debt. I will still pay interest, but now let's call it $1,800 in the first year and $1,000 in the second year. I gave up $2,800,
right?
But that's all I gave up,
Not
as opposed to $11,000,
right?
Because I didn't give up the money to pay off the principal.
Also, how old is this person?
Right. So I'm agreeing that everyone's scenario makes a difference, but people normally take the scenarios, a significant amount of people, especially when they're learning about infinite banking the first time, they take the scenarios at face value. They go, it will take me longer to pay off the debt, therefore I will not do that. And that's just not the end of the equation.
And like I said, also the human condition. How bad does this debt hurt? Can it be paid off with investment income? Or do you have a Christmas bonus coming soon?
Yep.
I mean, those are all good conversation topics that we've got to have when we talk with you. So we give you a third-party perspective look at it, and you make the best decision for yourself.
Here we go. Last scenario. You ready?
Ready.
This one is about kids and college.
I got kids.
Okay. So first things first, let's set the scene. You do want to help your children get through college.
Do I?
That's the scenario.
Okay.
So here's the would you rather, either or. Would you rather open up a 529 plan that is a state-sponsored school education expense plan?
It's called Future.
Don't know.
It's called Future Scholars in this state.
Yep. Would you rather open up a 529 plan with the tax advantages?
Yeah.
For education expenses.
Deferred.
Right?
Tax,
or would you rather take the same amount of money, start an infinite banking policy, but possibly not have the money because it was spent on other things that you decided for college for the kids?
Easy number 2 for me. I already did this first off. So we started a Future Scholars, that's what it's called in South Carolina, on our daughter when she was like 1 or something like that. She's 10 now. And several years ago, we made the switch. We closed that account and funded life insurance. We're using it for infinite banking right now. So it is growing, and cash flowing. But you're right. There may be an outstanding loan, and we may be short on some of the dollars needed for her super expensive MIT, Harvard, Cambridge, Yale experience. We might buy her a car when she was 16 or something, utilize those dollars. But we have expenses along the way. We've got to use money from somewhere. And now we have a pool, a reservoir that continues to grow in cash flow for us, and we never lose our contributions. Also, it can't go backward. So we've got the control, we've got the growth, it cannot go backward, and there will be no taxable consequences borrowing from this policy, where in the event, oh no, we really need an emergency, we got to pull this money out in the 529 scenario. Everybody knows, and very few people pull from those things because they know it'll be taxed. So they don't pull. It's money you can't use. And so
you saved up all this money in emergency happens, and you go put it on the credit card because you knew you couldn't access that money.
You go put it on the credit card. That's a good point, because now since I cannot use it, at least in my mind, right? You'd be taxed if you did. But since I cannot use it, I go make a worse decision probably with that 18% credit card. And now I'm paying all sorts. That's a good point. And I never normally think about that. And I don't think people do either, because they normally don't touch those accounts.
It
few
happens
people
all the time. People have this, $50, $60, $100, $150,000 in these retirement plans. Life gets crazy. And so they have the money to accomplish the goal. They have the money to fix the emergency, but they put it in the wrong spot, so they can't touch it. So then they have to go get the credit cards.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. I don't think I normally add that factor into the scenario. See, look at you adding factors into the scenario.
I'm just saying. Well, since we're adding, I'm just regular. I tried to put you in the position of the average, everyday, all-American male. All-American man, all-American family. And so that's what happens with the all-American family. Again, I'm not trying to say I don't get on the podcast and say people don't have money. People have money. They put it in the wrong locations.
That's a very good point. There's a lot of people. And the other issue is, by the time they need that money for income, AKA they're putting it in qualified plans. And they need that money for income, it's not enough. They don't they're like, man, I saved, I put it there, it got invested, it went backward a couple times, it's going to be taxed. Prices went up because I kept voting for the wrong folks and the Fed. And now I don't even have enough. So not only did I spend my working career paying the credit card companies the interest, I still don't have enough when I get to, retirement age, 58. 63, and I'm like, this ain't gonna do it.
There you go.
These people just keep on working. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed that either or, tell us, would you rather in any of those scenarios in the comments. We'd love to have that conversation with you. Once again, that's a free cash consultation where you can ask questions about how you can have code cracking cash flow and lots of control in your life. We'll talk soon.
Y'all tuned to the banking bros. Said we couldn't make it, drink or settle, this the life we chose. Gave a lot of game, we never got a lot of things. Bow your head and say the prayer, we taught you how to be the bank.
In this episode, we talked all about would you rather this scenario or that scenario, either this or that. And so what we want to ask you is, after you watch this episode, which would you rather? Would you rather take the time to learn about the infinite banking concept, what we like to call the save and spend system, or would you rather continuing going through life with the traditional financial information and accounts that you've always had, getting and accomplishing the same goals that you've had before? That's what we want to know. If you're interested in chatting with us, make sure that you click the link in the description to talk about having a free cash consultation where we'll teach you all about the infinite banking concept, get you the resources that you need in order for you to make an educated decision.